The truth is a hard pill to swallow. America needs an overdose. Become truth's junkie. Use sorrow's tears to wash pill poppers. The truth is a hard pill to swallow. America needs an overdose. Become truth's junkie. Use sorrow's tears to wash it down. Wolves in sheep's clothing unfolding lies. Truth! Set us free. Digging through the lies, finding you beneath the filth of hate and deceit. Truth! Bring us to our knees. Bent over in repentance, repeating the past, retreating. Don't ask, don't tell me no lies. Pop these pills of the truth is a hard pill to swallow. Coughing up these lies, choking my cognitive, distancing me from things unseen, confusing the very fibers of my being, my membranes, remembering, distorting my brain cells, brain dead to lies, brainwashed in truth, baptized in a new baptism. Is all forgiven? Repentance, recompense, making lies make sense, nonsense. Take this pill, pillow soften the blows of confusion, pillow talking life and death, eating the fruit of the seed you sown, reaping harvest unknown.
Hello, 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 everyone, and good evening, and welcome to Change the Channel. No static, no interference. I am Lisa L. Yeomans. I'm the founder of Change Gonna Come, an organization. We are a voice in the fight for freedom. A voice in the fight for justice, a hand in building community, and a key to unlocking freedom. So I want to welcome you again to Change the Channel. Go ahead and share the broadcast out. Tag your friends. If you're watching by replay, I do want to thank you for watching the replay and welcome to the replay. So we are going to go ahead and get started. And tonight I'm here with my special guest, Karen, Dr. K. Traylor-Aldolph. So Dr. Adolph, welcome to Change the Channel. So glad to have you here tonight as my special guest.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So we are going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to read a brief bio of Dr. Adolph. And as I do that, don't forget to go ahead and share the broadcast out, invite some people to come on and have this very important conversation with us on this evening. So Karen Dr. K. Traylor-Aldolph is a licensed psychologist whose life work is to show grace and support for youth who only want to be seen, heard, and understood, believing that everything they need is already on the inside of them. Her calling is to sift through their life to harvest strength through culturally responsive therapy and psychological assessments. Dr. K is a Brick City, Georgia peach, born in Newark, New Jersey to Georgia parents, so she has a inner city roots with a southern flair. She has a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology and African American studies from Duke University, where her interests in counseling, prevention, and research were sparked. She went on to gain public health experience in drug and violence prevention research at Emory University School of Public Health and Morehouse School of Medicine. With a first love of counseling, she earned a Master of Science degree in professional counseling from Georgia State University. There, she completed training in community mental health at Clayton Center in Riverdale and Teens at Work in East Point. As a licensed professional counselor, she also offered crisis counseling in the Gulf Coast after Hurricane Katrina. Dr. K earned a PhD in counseling psychology with a certificate in multicultural psychology from University of Missouri, Columbia. She has researched, counseled, and lived complex family systems such as grand families, relative and kinship families, divorced and blended families, co-parent, parallel parents, and alienated parents, often dads. She is keenly aware of the dark side of families and critical need for family stability. She considers it an honor, privilege, and gift to walk alongside youth and families in their journeys. That walk is filled with support, humor, tough love, and honesty. So again, Dr. K, I want to thank you and welcome you again to Change the Channel.
Thank you.
So we are going to go ahead and get started with this interview. So I just want to find out from you up front, what led you into this area of psychology, mental health counseling, especially with our youth, with the age group that you're dealing with. What led you to that area?
All right. Well, first, just again, thank you for having me on your platform. It really is just a blessing and honor just to be here to share this information, my heart and my passion with your audience. And so grateful for you just having the platform to have these things talked about, because often we either don't talk about mental health or things that are important in our community, or we keep it just within the community. And we need to have broader conversations about these things. But what brought me into counseling and the mental health field was just personal experience, life experience. Like I said, just complex family systems, growing up, situations within my family, separation, substance use of a parent, all of those kind of things. But the main, I guess you could say, impetus or spark was losing a parent early as a teenager and feeling like no one was there, because of the previous relationship within my family with the one I was a daddy's girl. And so losing him, I felt very alone in that space. And so just held my grief to myself, tried to go see a school counselor who was never there. And so there's this locked door, lights off, nobody's home. And literally in the hallway was like, one day I'm going to give to kids what I don't have right now. And I felt like that was a voice from God in my spirit. And I started my life journey there, just to be there, to be a validation and inspiration and encouragement to other young people who were going through life's challenges.
That is awesome. And like a lot of other people, what you're doing was actually birthed out of your need for something. Mm-hmm. And when you went to it, it was not there. So like with our youth today in school, they're dealing with a whole lot. Do you find that there's kind of like no way out, or they run into a brick wall, especially with counselors in school? And like you said, your counselor was never there. Do you find that is still a problem within our school system concerning our youth?
Absolutely. There just aren't enough. And it could have been that's what was going on in my school at the time. In fact, I only remember one counselor. So you imagine if he or she is working the entire school, or some mental health professionals are in multiple schools. They only come on a certain day. Oftentimes the professionals are pulled in other directions. So I've previously been shocked to actually see a mental health professionals working groups and seeing kids come in their office. And I'm like, oh, you have a group for divorced kids? Or, because that's what I would imagine school counselors to do. But often they're problem solving, troubleshooting, all kinds of things involved with testing, IEP meetings, behavior management. And so that one-on-one time isn't there. And not that they have to be the primary therapist for a child, but at least a point of contact to then, get them to somebody in the community. So one thing that's been helpful in certain communities, not as many as we need, is mental health in the schools. And that's been a help. It's few and far between. And so most of the kids that I see are not connecting with the counselors. They see them as an extension of discipline in the school, and not an ally, but someone adversarial with them. And so, I feel like that's my role, to help bridge that gap.
Right, exactly. So I do want to kind of go back when you were speaking about your experience and your need for that help when that help wasn't there, but now you're in a place that you're able to be the help for someone. How did you get to that place? Like, how did you come out of that as a teen, a young woman, and get to the place where you are right now, like getting over the death of your parents?
All I can say is by the grace of God, literally, because on paper, there was no reason I should have been here. given my struggles in school. So starting off as in gifted programs, but when that happened, just, grades falling, poor choices, hanging out, doing things. I wasn't wild and out there, but, wasn't making the wisest choices. But really severe depression through high school and probably half my college career. And so when you look at all of those things, the only thing that kept me literally was that voice that I heard, I have to do this one day. And so just tried to start structuring my experiences as it related to mental health and helping others. And that kind of lifted me up to continue going. But even through the PhD process, which took forever, I mean, I had people say, like, I'm surprised you're still there. I can't believe you're still working on this. I'm like, there's no other choice. I could not imagine my life doing anything else. Even when I tried to stop and say, well, I'll just stop at this level, I'll get my master's and I'll have my professional counseling license and I'll start there. Then I just start having dreams about something, like literally hunting me down. And I had to go back and find those visions and things that I had written. Like, no, there was more that I wanted to do in terms of psychology, testing, research, and all of that. So it really was just the spark and, knowing that I had to share the gift that God had given me.
Right. So first of all, thank you so much for your determination, just to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm quite sure a lot of young people are thanking you also for that. So my next question is, what I do want to know too with the young people, and we know as like adults within our community, there's this like stigma with the mental health and seeing counseling and therapy and different things like that. So are they receptive, or do you get some type of pushback sometimes from the young people when it comes to this area?
It's hit or miss. A good number, I'm very pleased, are requesting therapy. And so it's interesting for all the I guess, bad rap that social media gets. There's a lot of spaces where kids are talking about mental health these days and realizing they're not alone. So it's the young folks who are saying, I need someone else to talk to who can understand. And I'm proud of parents who make that decision too, that they've come to a point, we're not making any headway. Maybe somebody else, can be a conduit for change. I think the stigma is going down, but it's still very present. It's still very present for families of color, especially when we think about our religious background, spiritual leanings. We still get to pray about it and all those sorts of things, which in my opinion, it all works together. Use the wisdom that God has given us, use the people who have the tools to make it happen, just like you would with any other healing. But I think we do have a long ways to go. But no, the kids are all on board. And even if they come with, well, my mom, my dad made me come, by the end, they're going, because they just want somebody to listen to them.
Well, that's and another question. How do you, and you may have said it, but how do you actually connect with the young people? I know you're in a practice. So how do you like actually go into the schools, or are they coming like to your office? How do you actually connect with them?
These folks are just self-referrals on their own, and we take the insurance that the families have. And so I don't know how much homework they do. I would like people to be better educated on finding therapists that they can connect with. But I think it's just more, they've realized they need some help. The insurance says these are folks who take it, and then I end up there. And the best part is to be on the other side of that screen, and they don't know. Right now, I'm only doing virtual.
Okay.
And when I was in the office, and then they come in and they're like, because they're not expecting to see a Black psychologist there, and I'm like, that's why I'm here, because, you don't get a lot of that. And we need that, because that when you talk about making connections with kids, they have to get that you're there for them. and that there's some kind of connection. Now, everybody who looks like you isn't going to be a connection, but I think that's a starting place that I want to be there for them. And most times I tell them, I don't really like adults. I'm all about the kids. And so just kind of reel them in that way.
That's awesome. And the part where you said that they're a little shocked that you are African American when they come in, that remind me of a young lady. She's actually an adult, and she was saying how she was with someone her counselor was white or her therapist was white, but she just found that she was better able to connect with someone in our own community. So, and I think for our children, when they walk in and they see someone that looks like them, it probably takes the edge off too. Because in school, depending on the school you're in, most of your authority figures are going to be someone of a different race, a white race. And so when they come in, I think that's a great thing. And then you're able to connect on a whole different level with them because you both look alike. And you mentioned too, finding a therapist, for someone that's listening or that will listen to the broadcast. What are some of the tips that you can give someone that's in a place where they're looking to connect with a therapist?
Well, they're online. What to look for in a therapist, or where to look for a therapist?
Get some tips on how to go about. You can talk about where they can look also, but like to find their match. Like, what are some tips that you can give them for that?
I've recently, especially being a part of more listservs or groups in the local area, and I think especially because people are concerned about cultural competence and the connection, more and more people are doing consultations, maybe a free consultation, 15 or 30 minutes. And so I would encourage people to look for people who do that, who are willing to give you a few minutes of their time just to make sure it's the right thing. There's nothing worse than, it's just like going to a medical doctor and you go and you have to repeat the story over and over again. So I think anybody who's willing to offer a consultation, even if it's just by phone, that would be a great place to start. We have to be practical in terms of the finances. And so, beginning with insurance companies, if you're not able to pay out of pocket, to think about, what people are offered in the area, and then go about it that way too. Look up their websites, do your due diligence to see what kinds of things they're saying. Hopefully they have some pictures of themselves and, talk about what their main area is. But you definitely, I would recommend doing homework, a little more research, even if it's just a Google search, to just see what the people are saying. Sometimes you can get a lot from, are you represented on their website? If every picture is, of somebody different or not your age group or doesn't look like, they can relate, then that might not be the place for you either.
Right. So thank you. Also, is there like a place where people can go to look up, or is the Google search the thing to do?
To research the different people. A lot of times it's that there are websites like psychologytoday.com that you can put in like your area, what types of things you have concerns about, what population they see. So different listservs like that. I believe American Counseling Association has one also, just directories where people can look, and then you get an idea of them online and how they are. But I definitely would take advantage of the pre-consultations to see if it's a good fit.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. If you have any questions for Dr. K, feel free to put those in the comment section below, and we will get to your questions. So while we're still talking about our young people, I know we talked briefly earlier concerning the mental health as a whole of our young people and the issue of suicide. And I just kind of want you to touch on that. I don't really have a specific question around it, but just kind of, because I know I've seen quite a few things on social media with our young people concerning the issue of suicide.
I think What's most important for people to recognize is that suicide is a real issue for young people. And again, because of social media, a lot of people think, oh, well, they're just picking this stuff up. They're just, this part of a fad, or they're just going along. That's a pretty serious um, idea to have. And so even I never think about it in terms of attention seeking, or it's not really an issue. Often I hear kids say, I've been thinking about this for a while. And if they broach the subject, well, what do you have to complain about? You're young, you have everything. And young people are very much despondent and hopeless, especially when they get those responses back. So I would encourage people to just, be aware of signs of changes in their kids, which is hard, especially with adolescents, because they're already wacky. They go through their changes, they become quiet, isolated, their peers are more important. But when you get to that point where you feel like you can't reach them on a certain level, and it's drastic changes, grades, who they're hanging out with. Sometimes they'll just actually say, like, I'm just sad, I'm not happy, all of those kinds of things, pulling back from their regular activities. I think it's definitely something to take a look at. You have the website information and phone number up. Sometimes you can just call and just see, I'm seeing these signs and I don't know. Georgia has a crisis and access line where people can call when kids or anybody is in crisis. I think the biggest thing is to take it seriously and know that even for little kids, I mean, we see in the news a lot of times under 10, committing suicide from bullying and things like that. I'm sorry, I thought I did get rid of this. I think we definitely have to take it seriously, go to the school, be involved, and see what's really going on with our kids, especially in their cyber lives as well. A lot is happening there that people aren't aware of. And so, oh, they're just online, they're just playing games, and they could be in chat rooms where people are really infiltrating, their thoughts and their spirits.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that. And I never thought about they could be in chat rooms.
Even on games. And that's a big one. Gaming systems where they're like, oh, I just play with my friends. But think about it. If they're playing with their friend at their friend is at their house, they're at home, that's access for anybody else online to play with them also. And a lot of times people are preying on them in those spaces because they know they're young kids. Most adults aren't around watching them play. You see the gamer headset, so it's an isolated, quiet space that anybody can say anything, and it's not just chat about what's happening in the game, but where are you and those kinds of things. So
wow, that's something I never thought about. So again, thank you for sharing that. And we do have a question coming up, but I do want everybody to take note of the information that's on the screen right now. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The phone number is 800-273-8255. And their website is suicidepreventionlifeline.org for that information. So Dr. K, thank you so much for sharing that information with us. So we have a question, and it is, what impact has COVID-19 had on the mental health of kids?
Oh my goodness, that's been a huge one. When you think about kids not able to go to school, their outlets are gone, their routines are disrupted. We've had a lot of young people enter the mental health care system just due to the COVID-19 restrictions. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't have the restrictions, because some people make those kinds of things political, but this is why we need to have them in school. So it's not about that debate, but it has had an impact because you think about kids who routines mean the world, routines and consistency for kids. Some kids learn better in person with that, that attention from the adult right there. So the kids are losing out on being able to get the direct instruction, the social aspect of having their friends right there, the outlet of if they have a stressful home. School is a resource. I'm trying to think of the word, but a place of solace for a lot of kids. where they get their meals, where they get some peace, where they get some fun, and taking off the sometimes parentified hats in their home so they can just be a kid, learn, and have fun. And so to not have those things there and lose your social opportunities, your learning opportunities, it's been really big. And so we've gotten a lot more requests for testing for ADHD because they're like, these kids just can't sit here. And probably the majority that I've tested haven't had anything to do with ADHD. They're just their environments, they're stressed out, they're anxious, they can't pay attention, and so it's had a huge impact on the kids.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And what can parents or caregivers do at home to help their young person?
I think being creative in the outlets the kids have. So some, a good number are back in person, but still dealing with the ramifications of it. So just because they went back didn't mean that they are back to the place they were in terms of learning, socialization, all of that. So a number of kids are behind academically. And so I would still, as a parent, be attuned to that. How is the adjustment going back? How is the adjustment socially? I had one young lady who just went back from the March 20 shutdown. And it's like, everybody looks different. People have grown up, and my friends aren't the same, and the teachers are different. And I think to think about that, we as adults have so many more opportunities for outlets, talking with other people. We can leave the house, even if we say, oh, I'm just going to go run an errand. Kids can't do that. Right. And so just be mindful that they don't have those opportunities to have the different resources and support. So to be that extra support, how is the adjustment? What's going on? What's happening with your friends? How is your learning right now? Do I need to step in? Do we need a tutor? All those kinds of things. And I think a big thing that we don't do, COVID or not, is share our stories with our kids, because kids are struggling just like parents, but the kids feel like, oh, it's just me. Why can't I pay attention? But how many of us are on Zoom calls and sick of the latest thing or being at home? So I think sharing that experience, just like any other family experience, like I get on with people and there's been a death or a loss. Have y'all talked about that? No, we never talked about it. Or they had a big move, or we got a new baby or anything. So I think treat COVID in that same way. This is a shared life experience, a global experience that parents, families need to be talking about together and validate it, for wherever they are.
Right. So thank you. Thank you for those. I do think, since we're talking about the children in COVID and they happen to be home a lot, do you know any schools outside of counselors that were already there that are kind of like connected to mental health professionals? So if something that they can just kind of shift this child over to, or send the child to, like that's working closely with like a facility or doctors for their particular students?
Just to restate that.
Do you know of any schools that are like working closely with like mental health professionals for their if they do have issues, they have someone like readily that they can contact for?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't. I actually moved back to Georgia during the pandemic. And so there's a lot of disconnect for me with the community right now. And then because I'm telehealth, I don't have a specific area that I'm working with to even know, like, okay, well, this school does this or that. Like my clients are all over the place. And so just even getting, and I'm like, oh, are you on break right now? No, I'm not on break yet, but I just talked with this one. And so it's very much widespread. I don't feel like I'm in like one school district to say, what folks are doing. But I do believe some are better than others. If I get release of information and a school wants, to talk with me or somebody, I'm like, okay, they're attuned to having this communication and this collaboration on behalf of the kids. I haven't seen a lot of that. That's not to say it doesn't exist. I think it's just a matter of me getting more involved in the community. That's just been hard to do during the pandemic.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, thank you so much, because I just thought that would be a great idea you
Mhm.
know, if schools could connect with the mental health professional arena,
Mhm.
you know, for their young people, and not just their young people, the teachers also, you
Right.
know, for the teachers also. So I thought that would be a good thing. So if
Most
you are,
people do have, I'm sorry,
no, go
most
ahead.
people will have resource lists within their communities. So I've been hearing about a lot more social workers in the school. A social worker, position may be different from the counselor.
Right.
Mental health centers that just serve the community. So maybe not private practices. And that could be it too. Because I'm in a private practice, I wouldn't get those connections where a community mental health center normally.
Okay. Um, are you still there, Dr. K? Is it me freezing up here?
Hello, I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
Yeah, so it starts swirling. But yeah,
Oh,
so I think usually the schools go with the community mental health centers.
okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for that. So if you are just joining us, I do want to welcome you to Change the Channel. No static, no interference. And tonight I'm sitting down with my special guest, Karen Dr. K. Traylor-Aldolph. She's a licensed psychologist, and we were just engaged in a conversation around the mental health of our young people. So again, thank you for joining. Continue to share the broadcast out and give someone else an opportunity to get in on this great conversation. So we're just going to move it right along, Dr.
Mhm.
K.
Mhm.
Okay, so reading your bio, I saw where you also worked in at some point, and you may still do community mental health.
Mhm.
I just kind of want you to talk about that and talk about what that is and what that looks like when you're working in that area.
So the centers I was just speaking of that most public schools would have access to are like county, state, mostly county level agencies run by community service boards. And so the idea is to make mental health services more accessible. So by that, then they would have larger contracts that would allow them to take more subsidized insurances, so more of your Medicaids and things like that. Um, Community mental health services primarily, I believe, target like inner city communities or rural communities where it may be harder to access services. A lot of times they can be overrun with, so many people who are seeking help. And so, it gets harder to get in. You may not have as big of a selection of therapists that come in, but I think it's a great starting point because they also may have other programs like substance use programs, intensive outpatient programs, and different group therapies and things like that. Um, I always think about community mental health is just for the community, for the folk, and
Right.
that's where I've always been drawn to, because they're typically aren't families who are able to pay, $200 a session out of pocket, but just working families, who understand that they need some help and would like to get it in, a respectful way, people approaching them in ways that they need. So.
Right. So thank you. Because when I think about community mental health, I'm thinking about the health, the mental health overall of a.
Mm.
That's just the thought that comes into my mind. The mental health overall of a particular community. So
Oh, okay.
Mhm. Yeah, that's just me personally. Yeah, but thank you for just breaking that down and everything for us. And then
Mhm.
also you've dealt with grand families. Could
Yes.
you just share and explain to
Mhm.
us what that is and what that entails?
Yeah, so it's a term coined, I don't know by who, but grand families, families who are raised, the heads of households or grandparents,
Right.
and it's been expanded to other relatives. They have a special place in my heart. I started that work from a personal experience of losing my grandfather in 2009
Mm-hmm.
and really seeing the impact that he had on my family in general, but a lot of my cousins also. And just thought about, well, who's been there to support them? Once you've raised your children, you never expect to do that again. But I thought about, in our communities, we've been doing that for years, so it's not new. As my mama said, you just take folks' kids and you start raising them, and that's what we do. But then we forget about the unique challenges that grandparents and other relatives have, especially generationally. So some of those things I just talked about, like the cyber world, like my grandparents wouldn't know about, they wouldn't even think about, but it's really a huge impact on the kids that they would have raised if they, just gave them a cell phone thinking, well, everybody has one, and not understanding what's out there. I think another unique challenge they have is you're raising children who aren't with their biological parents, and that in and of itself has an impact. And so understanding any traumatic situations that they've been through, that they've experienced, if it's been abusive or anything like that. But to me, just being separated from a biological parent is traumatic in and of itself, because you're wondering where that parent is, or if they're in and out. What's our relationship? Is it my fault? Other people down the street have somebody there, or at school, I don't. So yeah, I think there's a lot of unique challenges and opportunities that we can have. One thing I noticed also is that we have a lot of informal caregiving in our community. So people aren't going to the foster care system. Like I said, you're just raising those kids, but then what happens to the resources you need? So then you go and, you don't want to hotline your kid or niece or nephew, but if that happens, then how do you navigate those systems? So that's another, opportunity to help with grand families. How do you navigate that? I've heard of from grandparents who are like, Medicaid, what is that? Food stamps, what are the, because people, have been self-sufficient doing their thing. And then they get these kids who have the alphabet soup of diagnoses that they don't understand too in mental health. So it's just so many ways that they're like, I just want to love the kid, but it's not enough. You got to understand if they have an IEP, do they have ADHD, do they have trauma, all these kinds of things. So my heart just went out to families. When I think about my grandparents, my grandfather was a farmer. So it's amazing, he was self-sufficient, self-made man, all of that. But now in today's world, like where do you get your resources? How do you navigate these systems? And a lot of times people are fearful of going in and dealing with systems because of their own experiences in education, legal systems, child protective services. So I think it's just a special space that, that we can do some work to support them in a more meaningful way. And I think as the drug crisis has grown, where so many kids are now in out-of-home placements, now there's more attention given to it, and it's a more diverse population, I'll say, that's dealing with those things. And now we're talking on federal levels of, we need to have grants and that. And I was like, but in our communities, we've been raising kids forever, but thanks.
Right. So it's just like for us, it's like second nature, because I was raised by my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I can't, but I never looked at it as a grand family, because when you're growing up, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And like you said, we've been raising each other children forever. So this is the way it is. But just listening to you, I think that mental health, or just having a counselor or a therapist there, that would have been a great help to me. I'm quite sure to some other family members, to my grandmother especially, just to have that piece of, because you do have those thoughts, like why your parent is not there, even if you see your parent, but that's, it's just a thing, that's your parent. So those thoughts are going to come. And I do like the fact that you talk about that, and actually you're like there with not just the child, but the grandparent too, to help them navigate through that, because that could be a lot. And sometimes in those situations, you find children are being rebellious or acting out. And, we'll say they're acting up, but, they're just acting out things that are going on on the inside of them. So I think that's a great idea. I never really heard it put that way, but I think that's a great thing that you're doing in that. So thank you so much also for that information. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to our question on the table.
Oh, okay.
I mentioned to you earlier. So, and I know in reading your bio, you was talking about providing stability for our young people. You actually said the young people and their families, because the families, you involve families also, the whole family within your work, which I think is a great idea. So it's not like the child is getting some information and then they go home to the same thing. So I really like that part of it. And then
or the child seen as the problem.
exactly. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So I really want us to talk about that after I get the question.
Okay.
So concerning stability, what 3 things will you give a youth that will provide stability for them on a mental level, spiritual level, and emotional level?
Ooh. Number one, expectations. We have to have a standard. And I think that can be provided verbally and non-verbally.
Right.
So it needs to be clear. Sometimes we get upset with our kids. I can't believe they did that. Where were you explicit that that's what you wanted them to do? We're very good at the no, but have we given them, this is what a yes would look like. This is what I want you to do. And am I modeling that for you? And that's the nonverbal I'm talking about. How do I manage my emotions? You know, do I have road rage, but then I want to tell my kids stop cursing people out? Like, no. So I think there has to be an expectation. There has to be consistency in whatever we do. So if this is what our positive standard is, then we're consistent in it. Consequences also, because often I see so many families where there are no real consequences. So, okay, you stole a car and then what? Or, you cursed out the teacher and then what? And so I think expectations, maybe consistency will go along with expectations. So kind of consistency and expectations, consequences, role modeling, and then just getting the mental health, understanding that it's just as important as physical health. And so I think an awareness of that, another way to put that, I think an emotional intelligence.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I really do like the expectations part of that. And then also the consequences. That is so true. And then like the follow through also with these consequences.
Yeah, and that's where the consistency comes in. And so, that, well, I'm going to do this. Well, did you do it? So a lot of times there are these kind of veiled threats, or I'm in my emotion, I'm in my feelings. So I just say these things, but then I really don't follow through on the consequences. And they need to be consistent, and they need to be matched to whatever the issue is. So, you're never going to leave the house again. Well, no, they have to go to school tomorrow. Like, let's be realistic about, what the expectations and the consequences are. And again, that emotional intelligence that goes with it, that you're modeling also.
Right. So thank you. And I love this question. This is like one of my most favorite parts of the show. It's the question on the table. But going back to the fact that you deal with like the whole family and not just the child, because the child is not always the problem, and you're dealing with the parents or the caregiver too. So just talk about the importance of bringing both together.
Yeah, you touched on it a second ago with trying to teach the child to do things differently, but their home life is the same. And again, it's those expectations, the consistency, the modeling. It's hard to make a change if the system doesn't. And usually in a system, if one person changes, the system will change too, because people will adjust. But because of the power dynamic for kids, they often don't have enough cachet or power to make an effective change in the system. So I think families have to be involved to, number one, support mental health, not make fun of it, to validate the feelings and the concerns, to see where they may have contributed and how they can help. I always say, if you're not going to help, don't hinder. And sadly, a lot of people do hinder the process of their kids because they haven't moved past a certain point and they don't want to see their kids do that. Like, I'll never forget when mom who had been through some challenges. I saw the little girl who kept, reporting things, but because she wasn't through what had happened with her. So every time she had a presentation at school, it's like, that happened to me. She says it happens to me. The system kicks in place. They think it happened yesterday, but it didn't. But she's not over it. So it's like it happened yesterday. And so when I don't sign off on the paperwork to say, she's still kind of, it's in there, when nobody did anything for me. And I was like, wow, that is so, like, how could you say that? How could you say that to somebody? And so I'm like, how can we expect this girl to move past her pain when her mom's still stuck in hers? Right. And then sadly, it's the same people who have perpetrated this, and then you're still in that environment. And so what is that saying? Is it valuing and honoring that experience? And are any of you safe physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually? And so we definitely have to have the families on board. It's better if we have families on board, but if nothing else, like I said, if you're not going to help, don't hinder. Allow the child to get their therapy, do what they need to do, and try to be as supportive as you can. But I've seen young people who act out, as you said, and I felt like they were the most sane person in the house. I'm like, it makes sense because you're letting it out. And this idea that there are no problems and we're all just going to walk past it. Like, no, you actually make the most sense. And I told one young lady that, and she's like, no, like, I'm the bad one. I'm the crazy one. Like, she couldn't even receive that this was a normal response to an abnormal situation. You make a whole lot of sense, And so I think families are really important, and just being honest. And like I said, telling that truth that, especially as parents, we've been through difficult situations. I've made mistakes. I apologize for that. I'm just learning, how can we all do this together?
Right. So thank you. And that story concerning the mom and her child, and you see that a lot, not just in that particular situation, but you see that a lot. The parent or the caregiver is not over their issues. And they're hindering the young person from being free of whatever all of this is, whatever's been going on from generation to generation within a particular family. So, that's a lot. That's a lot because it's like, what do you do about it? When those type of things are going on, like, how do you get through to that parent? To whatever is keeping them back and to allow their child to walk in freedom.
Sometimes I've had frank conversations and then really realized parents need to be validated just as much as the kids. And they're doing the best they can. So that's a big thing that I do. I can understand where this is coming from. Maybe you've had something in your past. Like I said, the biggest one is you did the best you can with what resources you had. It's like the thing they say, when you know better, you do better. So why don't we want to give your kid a shot maybe that you didn't have? And so trying to come at it that way. There are some parents I may see at intake and never see again. The kids may log in, the kids may show up in person, but the parent is not involved. And in that case, then I just have to, release that, try to keep saying, you're important, and then just focus on the kid. Well, what are your choices? How can we get you to the point where now then you can have your own life? How can you just make it? Until a lot of kids, I say, until you find your tribe and they get that, like, your people who can support you, your chosen support system, because unfortunately we're not always born, with that.
Right. And I was just going to say, I can also imagine, like, in those situations, if you have the child and the parent or the caregiver is not being supportive, like, that kind of like sends them down the wrong path, or discouragement in a sense, like they don't matter enough for that, even though they're still showing up. So do you kind of find that sometimes that they're still showing up with discouragement because that support is not being given?
Yeah, I find a lot of my work being an advocate, being a coach, and even trying to give credit where it is, what, at least your parent has presented you here. Because they didn't have to even allow you to sign you up or to bring you here. And so we'll give them that credit, but they just may not be able to take you to the next level for whatever, of their concern it is. I would never try to turn kids against their parents, but, doing the same thing, like I just said, obviously there's something, maybe there's a disconnect for them, but at least they have you here, and we'll do the best we can to work with the resources that you do have.
Right. And I think that's a good thing to mention too, the fact that they brought you here. They brought you here for help. And some people just don't know. They don't know how to grab a hold. They don't know how to get the help for themselves, especially if they're like the primary caregiver of this particular family and they're so used to giving. They don't know how to receive the help or how to receive someone saying that you're valuable and you're worth this also. So yeah, it's a lot that goes into it. Yeah. So I get that. I really do. I really get that. But I do want to thank you once again for joining me. And this is a great topic. So I may have to have you back because
absolutely. I can talk all day.
I have more questions, but this is a great conversation. And just to talk about mental health in our community, I want to promote that as much as possible because of, the stigma surrounding that and people not wanting to go and people in church saying all you got to do is pray. And we all know that it's more to it than that. And just the embarrassment sometimes from when you mention that word mental health or you're telling a child that this is an issue, you never know, they could feel like labeled or hindered in some type of way if what they're hearing is negative to a positive thing that they're trying to get through. So I just want to thank you for coming on tonight and just highlighting that for our community. And to anyone that's listening, I'm gonna let you have some parting words for them. But to anyone that's listening, if you find yourself in a place that you do need the help, get the help. I know there was a time in my life, especially when I was dealing with like some homelessness in my life, I had counselors all around me. I had to go to see a therapist. I had people there, and I knew that I had people there that if I needed to call someone, I was able to call someone. So get the help that you need. Reach out to someone. Just connect with someone. If you know that your child needs to help, get your child to help. Even if, like Dr. K was saying, even if you're not going to go, at least present it for your child to be able to walk in a place and a level of freedom. So Dr. K, do you have any final words that you want to leave with the audience on tonight?
I do. I think two things. A lot of times people, the word they use when they're talking about mental health or mental illness is crazy. Right. And often I'll talk with the kids in the beginning. I'm like, what is your understanding of mental health or mental illness or why we're here? And I was like, and they don't even want to say the word. And I put it out there and I'm like, but I can't work with crazy people. I said, because, first off, I don't like to use the word, but to me, that word means like you're not even cognizant of what's happening. I was like, but the fact that you can present, you can, you're telling your story, your truth, what you've been through, you're having a like I said, a normal response to an abnormal situation. That's not crazy. The sanest thing you can do is to get help and say, I need some help with this. Would you walk around with a broken bone or your eyeball hanging out your eye? Like that's crazy. That's insane to not get help when it's available. And related to that the help being available in our community, I think we have to read deeper into our spirituality, because if we're going to base it often on the Bible, but things where it's like, renewing your mind, that's all psychological term. That's all it's about. Renewing your mind, coping skills of what is the situation? How can I see things differently? How can I bring that joy or, so I think a lot of the terms and the ideas do marry and they're there together. We just have to, talking about using wise counsel, all of those kinds of things. And of course, as a believer, I believe the ultimate healing, comes from God. But I think you got to work it too. Faith without works is dead. So you've got to do something, to get a different outcome. So the sanest thing you can do is present for help. And if you want things to be different, you got to do something different.
Right. Thank you. And I almost believe people can connect with you on Facebook at Dr. K Traylor-Aldolph. If you would like, and is that the only place that someone can connect with you, or do you have any other means?
I think I do have Instagram and those kinds of things, but they can do Facebook.
Okay, so if you would like to connect with Dr. K, you can do that on Facebook at Dr. K Traylor-Aldolph. So again, I want to thank you all, to those that joined me here live and also that will watch the replay. Thank you for joining me on tonight. Continue to share this broadcast out with this valuable information concerning our youth, especially in the area of mental health. And I was here tonight with my special guest, Dr. Karen Dr. K Traylor-Aldolph. So thank you so much, Dr. K, for joining us
Thank
on
you.
tonight. And everyone, be sure to join me next Thursday for another episode of Change the Channel. No static, no interference at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until the next time, everyone, goodbye and God bless.